Captain Dongwu had been staring at the computer screen for so long that his eyes hurt. The strange signals kept coming through their deep space radio, the same pattern of numbers over and over again. For 3 days now, the monitoring station had been picking up these signals from somewhere far beyond the edge of known space. The numbers were perfect. Too perfect. Nature did not make patterns like this. But when Dongwu ran the signals through every language database in the Galactic Council's computers, nothing matched. Whatever was sending these signals was not speaking any language that humans or their alien allies had ever heard before. "Captain, I have been studying this signal all night," said young Sik, who worked the communication station on their exploration ship. His fingers moved quickly over the controls as he tried different ways to decode the message. "The signal is definitely made by someone intelligent. But sir, it is very old. The energy patterns suggest it has been broadcasting for thousands of years." Dongwu rubbed his tired eyes and looked around the bridge of the New Seoul. His crew had been working hard to understand these mysterious signals. Everyone wanted to know what they meant and who was sending them. "What else can you tell me about the source?" Dongwu asked. Engineer Su Bin looked up from her sensor station. She had been running scans of the area where the signals were coming from. "Captain, our long-range sensors show something very big out there. It is about 40 light-years past our farthest colonies, just floating in empty space." The bridge crew exchanged worried looks. Everyone knew the rules about investigating unknown signals from unexplored parts of space. The Galactic Council was very strict about these things. They were supposed to report the signals and wait for a proper military ship to come investigate. But Captain Dongwu had spent 15 years exploring the galaxy. He had discovered new planets, made first contact with alien species, and mapped star systems that no human had ever seen before. He knew that if they waited for the Council to send an official expedition, whatever was out there might be gone by the time they arrived. "Sir, we should probably report this and wait for instructions," said Ji-hai, his second officer. She was young but smart and she always followed the rules exactly. Dongwu understood her concern. Breaking Council regulations could end his career and get his crew in serious trouble. But something about these signals bothered him. They were not random. They were not just scientific data or navigation markers. They felt like a cry for help. "Someone out there has been calling for thousands of years," Dongwu said quietly. "Nobody has answered them yet. Maybe it is time someone did." The decision was not easy. If they were wrong about the signals, if they turned out to be dangerous or hostile, Dongwu would be responsible for putting his crew at risk. But if they were right, if someone really needed help, then waiting could mean letting people die while bureaucrats filled out paperwork. "Set course for the signal source," Dongwu ordered. "Maximum jump speed." The crew moved quickly to prepare for the jump to hyperspace. Even though some of them were nervous about breaking regulations, they trusted their captain. Dongwu had never led them into danger without good reason, and he had never abandoned anyone who needed help. The journey to the signal source took 6 hours of travel through hyperspace. When they finally dropped back into normal space, everyone on the bridge fell completely silent. What they saw on their screens was unlike anything in their databases or training manuals. Floating in the cold darkness of space was a ship that looked like it had been built by artists instead of engineers. It was enormous, easily 10 times larger than their own vessel. The hull was made of some kind of metal that shifted colors as their lights hit it, flowing from deep purple to silver like liquid mercury. But something was terribly wrong with the beautiful ship. Strange crystal growths covered the entire hull like a disease. The crystals looked almost alive, pulsing with their own faint light. No lights showed in any of the ship's windows, and it drifted without power like a dead thing in space. "Are there any life signs?" Dongwu asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. Young Sik ran his scanners over the alien vessel twice before responding. His voice was quiet and worried. "Very faint readings, Captain. Most of the ship appears to be dead, but there is something alive in the central section. Whatever is in there is barely surviving." "What about the atmosphere inside?" Subin checked her environmental scanners. "The air is barely breathable, sir. Oxygen levels are critically low, and the temperature is near freezing. If there are people in there, they will not last much longer." Dongwu studied the alien ship on their main screen. Every instinct he had developed over 15 years of space exploration told him this was dangerous. The ship looked wrong somehow, like it was infected with some kind of technological disease. The crystal growths covering the hull reminded him of pictures he had seen of viruses spreading through living tissue. But that signal was still broadcasting. Even now, their computers were picking up the same mathematical sequence that had been repeating for thousands of years. It was a message, a call for help that had been echoing through space while entire civilizations rose and fell. Prepare a boarding party, Dongwu decided. Subin, Youngsik, Jihai, you are with me. Full environmental suits and emergency medical supplies. Jihai looked concerned. Captain, we have no idea what those crystal growths are. They could be dangerous. They could be contagious. They could be, Dongwu agreed. But if we do not investigate, whoever is sending that signal will die, and we will never know what they were trying to tell us. Getting close to the alien ship was more difficult than they had expected. The crystal growths were so thick in some places that they had to use cutting tools to reach an airlock. When they finally managed to dock with the alien vessel and open the connection between ships, they found themselves looking into corridors that were both beautiful and terrifying. The walls inside the ship were made of the same color-shifting metal as the hull. As their helmet lights moved across the surfaces, the walls changed from silver to gold to deep blue, like they were alive and responding to the light. But everything was covered in the same crystal disease they had seen outside. The crystals seemed to pulse with their own rhythm, like a slow heartbeat. They covered control panels, doorways, and even what looked like artwork on the walls. Whatever these crystals were, they had been growing inside the ship for a very long time. This way, Youngsik said, following the readings on his scanner toward the life signs. The signals are getting stronger. Whatever is alive in here, it is not far away. They found them in what appeared to be a medical bay. Dozens of tall, elegant beings lay inside crystal-covered pods that looked like combination beds and life support systems. Most of the pods were dark and empty, their occupants long dead. But a few still glowed with faint power, and through the transparent covers they could see the aliens inside. The beings were humanoid but taller than humans, with pale blue skin that seemed almost translucent and long silver hair that floated around their faces like they were underwater. They were beautiful in a way that made the humans feel sad, like looking at a sunset that you knew you would never see again. One of the pods was different from the others. The alien inside was awake, its large silver eyes staring up at them through the crystal-covered glass. When it saw the humans, its mouth moved like it was trying to speak, but no sound could get through the pod's seal. "It is trying to communicate with us," Jihai whispered. Before anyone could respond, the pod began to open with a soft hissing sound. The alien inside sat up slowly, moving like someone who had been lying down for a very long time. When it finally spoke, its voice was like music, but sad music that made everyone feel lonely just by hearing it. "You came," the alien said in perfect human language, though with an accent none of them had ever heard before. After so long, someone finally came. The alien's words hung in the air like a prayer answered after centuries of waiting. Captain Dongwu looked into those ancient silver eyes and realized that their simple decision to investigate a mysterious signal had just changed the course of history for two entire species. The alien who called himself Kethmar was dying, and everyone could see it. Captain Dongwu watched as Dr. Haewon carefully examined the strange being with her medical scanner. Kethmar's pale blue skin looked almost see-through under the flickering lights of his damaged ship, and his silver eyes had lost the bright glow they probably once had. "My people are called the Valeth," Kethmar explained in his musical voice. Even though he was weak, he tried to sit up straight and speak clearly. "We were explorers once long ago. We traveled between the stars when your species was still very young and had not yet learned to leave your home planet." Dr. Haewon frowned as she looked at her scanner readings. Something very strange was happening inside Kethmar's body. The scanner showed that his cells were losing energy at a rate that should have killed him already. It was like something invisible was slowly draining the life out of him, one bit at a time. "What happened to your people?" Dongwu asked gently. He could see that talking was difficult for Kethmar, but he needed to understand what they were dealing with. "How did you end up floating alone in space like this?" Kethmar's expression became sad and frightened at the same time. "We found something we should never have found. In the dark, empty spaces between galaxies, there are things that exist but should not exist. Ancient things. Hungry things. We accidentally touched one of them, and it followed us home like a disease." Engineer Subin had been checking the ship's systems while the others talked. Her reports were getting more worrying every few minutes. "Captain, our equipment is breaking down much faster than it should. Whatever is affecting these aliens is starting to affect our technology too." As if her words had made it happen, Youngsik's scanner suddenly flickered and went completely dark. He shook it, pressed all the buttons, tried to restart it, but the device was completely dead. It had been working perfectly just minutes before. "The plague," Kethmar whispered, and the way he said the word made everyone feel cold inside. "It consumes everything it touches. Energy, technology, life itself. It destroyed our homeworld and turned it into a dead rock floating in space. Then it followed us when we tried to escape. Every world we visit becomes infected. Every species we meet begins to die. Dr. Haywon looked up from her medical readings with growing alarm. Captain, whatever this plague is, it is not just affecting their biology. It is attacking our technology too. My scanner is showing system failures spreading throughout our entire ship. Dongwu felt a chill run down his spine. How long before our systems fail completely? Subin checked her readings again, hoping she had made a mistake. At this rate, maybe 6 hours before our life support systems shut down. After that. She did not need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what happened when life support failed in deep space. The smart thing to do would be to leave immediately. They could return to human space, report the location of the alien ship to the authorities, and let someone else worry about the problem. It would be the safe choice, the logical choice that would keep his crew alive. But Captain Dongwu looked at Kethmar's dying eyes and the crystal-covered pods around them, and he made a different choice entirely. How many of your people are still alive? He asked. Kethmar's voice was barely a whisper. 37. We are the last survivors of our entire species. We have been drifting through space for 3,000 of your years, waiting to die alone and forgotten. Not today, Dongwu said with determination. Subin, can you transfer power from our ship to keep their life support systems running? Subin looked shocked. Captain, if we do that, it will drain our power reserves even faster. We might not have enough energy left to get back to human space. Then we had better work quickly, Dongwu replied without hesitation. Dr. Haywon, I want you to study this plague. Find out how it works and how we can stop it. Young Sik helped Subin with the power transfer. Jihai, start preparing our cargo bay to take on refugees. Jihai spoke up quietly. Sir, if we bring them aboard our ship, the plague will spread to all our systems too. We might not survive the journey home. Dongwu nodded. He understood the risks better than anyone. I know. But we cannot just leave them here to die. They have been lost in the darkness for 3,000 years. It is time someone brought them home. Kethmar stared at the human captain with amazement. In all his long life, in all the stories passed down through generations of his people, he had never heard of any species willingly risking their lives to save complete strangers. You would risk everything for people you have never met? Kethmar asked. For a species you know nothing about? That is what humans do, Dongwu said simply. When we see someone who needs help, we help them. It does not matter if they are human or alien, friend or stranger. As his crew got to work, Dr. Haywon made a disturbing discovery about the plague. It was not just randomly destroying their equipment. The plague seemed to be intelligent, learning and adapting as it spread through their systems. Captain, this plague is not just some kind of space virus, she called urgently. It is studying our technology before it destroys it. It is learning how our systems work and then targeting the most important components first. But even as their ship's lights began to flicker and fail around them, the human crew continued working. They connected power cables to keep the alien life support pods running. They prepared medical supplies and emergency equipment. They refused to give up, even as the mysterious plague spread through their ship like a technological cancer. Kethmar watched the humans work with growing wonder. In 3,000 years of drifting through space, his people had encountered other species before. Most aliens had run away as soon as they detected the plague. Some had tried to destroy the Valeth ship to prevent the infection from spreading to their own worlds. But these humans were different. They stayed when others fled. They helped when others only thought of themselves. They chose hope when the logical choice was despair. Why do you do this? Kethmar asked Captain Dongwu as the human worked to connect their ship's power to the alien life support systems. Why do you risk your lives for us? Dongwu looked up from the complicated power transfer controls. Around them, warning lights were flashing as their ship's systems began to fail one by one. But his expression remained calm and determined. Because you called for help, he said. For 3,000 years, you have been sending out that signal, asking for someone to find you. Well, we found you. And no matter what happens, you are not going to die alone. Dr. Haywon was working frantically to understand the plague, but what she discovered only made things more confusing. The plague was incredibly sophisticated, almost like a living computer program that could affect both biological and technological systems. It is targeting organized patterns, she reported. The more advanced and complex a system is, the faster the plague destroys it. But Captain, there is something strange. Our human technology seems to be resisting the plague longer than the alien technology did. Young Sik looked up from the power transfer station. How is that possible? Their technology is obviously more advanced than ours. That is exactly the point, Dr. Haywon said with excitement. Our technology is newer, messier, less organized. The plague seems to have trouble recognizing our systems as targets worth attacking immediately. Kethmar's eyes widened with the first hope he had felt in centuries. Your chaotic human technology confuses the plague? It seems that way, Dr. Haywan confirmed. We might be buying ourselves more time than we thought. As the hours passed, something remarkable began to happen. Despite the plague spreading through their systems, despite the danger and the equipment failures, humans and aliens began working together. Kethmar shared his knowledge of the plague's behavior patterns, while the humans shared their chaotic but effective technology. There might be a way to fight this, Dr. Haywan said as she studied the interaction between human and alien systems. If our technology can resist the plague longer, maybe we can use that somehow. Subin was already thinking along the same lines. What if we combine our technologies? Use human components to protect alien systems. The idea was dangerous and untested, but it was the only hope they had. As their ship's power levels dropped toward critical and the plague continued its relentless advance, Captain Dongwu realized they were about to attempt something that had never been tried before. They were going to teach two completely different technologies to work together, all while fighting a cosmic plague that had destroyed entire civilizations. And they had less than 6 hours to make it work, or everyone aboard both ships would die in the cold darkness of space. But looking at his crew and their new alien friends working side by side, Dongwu felt something he had not expected to feel in this desperate situation. He felt hope. Dr. Haywan had not slept in over 20 hours, but she was too excited to feel tired. She had been studying the mysterious plague that was slowly killing both their ship and the alien vessel, and what she discovered changed everything they thought they knew about their situation. "Captain, I think I finally understand what we are dealing with," she announced to the emergency meeting in their ship's conference room. All around them, lights flickered on and off as the plague continued to drain their power systems, but her voice was full of hope. "This plague is not just some random destructive force," Haywan explained, pulling up data on her tablet screen. "It is incredibly smart, almost like a living computer virus that can attack both machines and living beings. But here is the important part, it has very specific rules about what it attacks." Engineer Subin looked up from her failing equipment. "What kind of rules?" "The plague goes after organized energy patterns," Haywan said with growing excitement. "The more advanced and perfectly organized a system is, the faster the plague destroys it. That is why the Valith technology failed first. Their systems are incredibly sophisticated and well organized. But our human technology is different." Young Sik frowned. "Different how? Our technology works just fine." "Yes, but it works in a messy way," Haywan laughed. "Think about it. Human technology is newer than theirs, and we build things that work without worrying too much about making them perfect. We use shortcuts, backup systems, and sometimes we just tape things together until they work. The plague has trouble figuring out how to attack something that is already chaotic." Kethmar, who had been listening from his wheelchair, spoke up weakly. "You are saying that your primitive technology is actually protecting you from the plague?" "Not primitive," Subin corrected with a smile. "Just more creative. We build things differently than you do. When something breaks, we fix it with whatever we have available. Our systems are not elegant, but they are very hard to predict." Captain Dongwu was beginning to understand the implications. "So our messy human technology actually resists the plague longer than advanced alien technology?" "Exactly," Haywan confirmed. "But Captain, I think there is more to this. I have been experimenting with connecting human components to Valith systems, and something amazing happens when we combine them." She activated a small device that looked like it had been built from spare parts in someone's garage. Half of it was clearly human technology, rough metal, visible wires, and components that had obviously been taken from other machines. The other half was elegant Valith crystal circuitry that glowed with soft light. "When I connect human technology to Valith systems, the plague cannot figure out how to attack either part," Haywan explained. "Our chaotic human components confuse the plague's targeting system, and that confusion protects the alien technology too." Subin's eyes lit up with understanding. "You are talking about building hybrid systems. Using human technology as a shield to protect Valith technology from the plague." "That is exactly what I am talking about," Haywan said. "But there is a catch. The hybrid systems need constant human supervision to stay stable. Someone has to actively monitor and adjust the connections to keep the plague confused." Young Sik had been analyzing data while they talked. "Dr. Haywan is right about the plague's behavior. I have been studying its attack patterns, and it really does have trouble with human brain activity. Our thought patterns are too random and emotional for it to predict." Kethmar stared at the humans with a mixture of hope and fear. You are suggesting that humans could serve as living shields against the plague? More than that, Captain Dongwu said, understanding the full scope of what they were proposing. We could help you rebuild everything the plague destroyed. If human technology can resist the plague and human minds can protect Veilith systems, then working together we might be able to beat this thing completely. But the solution was dangerous. To protect alien technology from the plague, humans would need to connect their nervous systems directly to the hybrid systems. Nobody knew what the long-term effects might be, and the process would be exhausting and potentially harmful. I will volunteer for the first test, Su Bin said immediately. Absolutely not, Dongwu replied firmly. I am the captain. If anyone is going to take risks with untested technology, it should be me. With respect, sir, I am the engineer, Su Bin argued. I understand these systems better than anyone else on the ship. Besides, someone has to prove that this actually works before we risk the captain's life. Before Dongwu could argue further, Su Bin was already putting on the neural interface headset that Dr. Haewon had built from human and Veilith components. The device looked like a combination of a medical scanner and an alien crown, with wires and crystals extending from it like technological hair. What happened next was both terrifying and amazing to watch. Su Bin's body went completely rigid as the neural interface connected her mind to a plague-infected Veilith navigation system. Her eyes rolled back, and monitors showed her brain activity spiking to levels that should have been dangerous. For several long minutes, nobody spoke or moved. They could only watch as Su Bin's mind battled the plague on a level that none of them could understand. Her body occasionally twitched or trembled, but she remained connected to the alien system. Then, slowly, something miraculous began to happen. The crystal growths covering the navigation system started to change. The diseased-looking crystals that had been pulsing with sick light began to clear and brighten. The system's displays flickered to life for the first time in centuries, showing star charts and navigation data that made Kethmar gasp with joy. When Su Bin finally opened her eyes and removed the headset, she was exhausted but smiling. It works, she said weakly. I could feel the plague trying to attack the system, but when my mind was connected to it, the plague could not get through. My thoughts were too chaotic, too unpredictable for it to understand. Kethmar was crying, tears of hope running down his pale blue cheeks. You have done something we thought was impossible for 3,000 years. You have pushed back the plague. But Captain Dongwu was already thinking about bigger possibilities. If we can cure one system, we can cure all of them. But we are going to need more volunteers. Word spread quickly through the ship about Su Bin's success. Within hours, volunteers from the human crew were lining up to take turns interfacing with different Veilith systems. It was exhausting work that left each volunteer drained and tired, but nobody complained. They could see that their efforts were literally bringing the alien ship back to life. The plague fought back, trying new attack patterns and strategies, but human unpredictability proved to be its greatest weakness. Where the plague expected logical, organized responses, it found human creativity, emotion, and pure stubborn determination. Dr. Haewon made another important discovery as they worked. Captain, I do not think this plague is evil or malicious. The more I study it, the more it seems like some kind of immune system. I think it evolved to protect the universe from civilizations that become too advanced too quickly. Protect the universe from what? Dongwu asked. Kethmar's expression became serious. From species like mine. We became so advanced that we started tampering with forces we did not understand. The plague quarantines civilizations that might become dangerous to the cosmic order. Young Sik looked up from his station with amazement. So the plague is not trying to destroy advanced civilizations. It is trying to isolate them until they learn to be more responsible. But humans are different, Su Bin observed. We are advanced enough to help, but chaotic enough that we do not trigger the plague's defensive responses. As more Veilith systems came online and more aliens awakened from their long sleep, a new possibility emerged. Humans and Veilith working together could accomplish things that neither species could achieve alone. The plague had tested both species and found them wanting when they were separate, but together they represented something entirely new. We are creating something unprecedented, Kethmar told his awakening people as more stasis pods came online. A partnership between chaos and order, between innovation and wisdom. The plague cannot defend against something it has never encountered before. Captain Dongwu watched his crew working alongside the awakening Veilith, and he realized that their simple decision to help a dying species had created something much larger than a rescue mission. They were proving that intelligence and advancement were not about building perfect systems or conquering other species. True advancement was about reaching out to help others, about finding cooperation where others saw only competition, and about combining different strengths to overcome impossible challenges. The plague had been the universe's way of testing civilizations, and humanity had just passed a test they did not even know they were taking. 3 weeks into their desperate fight against the plague, Dr. Hay-1 made a discovery that shocked everyone on both ships. She had been studying the brain patterns of humans who had successfully connected with infected alien systems, and what she found was almost too amazing to believe. "Captain, the plague is not just being stopped by human brain patterns," she announced excitedly during their morning briefing. "It is actually being taught by them. Every time a human connects to an infected system, the plague learns to recognize that type of technology as safe and harmless." The room fell silent as everyone tried to understand what this meant. They had thought they were just fighting the plague, but apparently they were actually educating it. Engineer Su Bin, who had become their most experienced neural interface operator, was tired but fascinated. "When I connect to the alien systems, I can feel the plague probing my thoughts. It is like having someone very curious looking through your mind, trying to understand what kind of person you are." "And what does it find when it looks?" Captain Dongwu asked. "Curiosity. Kindness. The desire to help and explore, not to hurt or control others." Subin smiled weakly. "I think that is why the plague stops attacking. It realizes that we are not dangerous." Kethmar, who was now fully recovered and working as a bridge between the two species, provided important background information. "The plague has been active for millions of years, Captain Dongwu. It has encountered thousands of different species as they reached advanced levels of technology. All of them, when they became powerful enough, showed the same patterns: aggression, the desire to conquer, and the need to control everything around them." Young Sik had been working with awakened Valeth scientists to map how far the plague had spread throughout the galaxy. What they discovered was both terrible and hopeful at the same time. "The plague has quarantined 17 major civilizations over the past million years," he reported to the assembled group. "But Captain, some of those civilizations might still be alive. They could be isolated and waiting for help, just like the Valeth were." The room became very quiet as everyone understood what young Sik was saying. Scattered across the galaxy were potentially dozens of advanced civilizations, trapped by the plague, slowly dying while they waited for someone to find them and help them. "We could save them all," Dr. Hay-1 whispered. "If human neural patterns can teach the plague to recognize peaceful intentions, we could free every quarantined species in the galaxy." But the constant neural interface work was taking a serious toll on the human volunteers. Each session left them mentally exhausted, and Dr. Hay-1 was becoming worried about the long-term effects on their brain function. "We need more people," Subin said during one of her rest breaks. She looked pale and tired after spending hours connected to alien computer systems. "I can maybe handle 2 more interface sessions before I need several days to recover." Captain Dongwu had been thinking about this exact problem. "We need to return to human space and recruit volunteers. But we also need to prove that this process works on a larger scale first." That was when Kethmar offered to share something that surprised all the humans. "There is something important you should know about how the plague has affected my people. While it has isolated us from the rest of the galaxy, it has also given us certain unusual abilities." The Valeth elder walked over to a wall panel that had been dark and dead for centuries. He placed his hand on it, and suddenly the panel lit up with complex star charts showing parts of space that no human had ever seen before. "The plague has changed our brain chemistry in ways that make us sensitive to cosmic forces that normal species cannot detect," Kethmar explained. "We can sense gravitational fields from vast distances, detect dark matter concentrations, and perceive space-time distortions that are invisible to most technology." Dr. Hay-1's medical scanner confirmed what Kethmar was saying. The plague had indeed altered Valeth brain structure, but instead of damaging them, it had enhanced their ability to navigate through space and understand cosmic phenomena. "You can see things in space that we cannot even imagine," Young Sik said with amazement. "And you can touch things that we cannot," Kethmar replied. "Together, we have abilities that neither species could ever develop alone." The partnership between humans and Valeth deepened as they worked together to restore more of the alien ship. Humans provided the neural protection that kept systems safe from plague attacks, while Valeth provided cosmic navigation abilities that far exceeded anything human science had achieved. Then Dr. Hay-1 and a Valeth scientist named Tathai made the breakthrough that changed everything. Working together, they discovered that the neural interface process could be made much more efficient and powerful. "Instead of one human protecting one system, we can create network connections," Hay-1 explained excitedly. "A single human mind can be connected to multiple alien systems at the same time, with the Valeth serving as coordinators and amplifiers." The first large-scale test was performed by Captain Dongwu himself. He insisted on taking the risk personally, despite protests from his crew. Using the new network interface system, he connected his mind to the entire navigation and propulsion system of the Valeth ship. The experience was unlike anything Dongwu had ever imagined. Through the Valeth neural network, he could suddenly sense cosmic forces that he had never known existed. He could feel the pull of gravity from distant stars like invisible ropes tugging at his consciousness. He could perceive the flow of dark matter through space like ocean currents that carried ships between the stars. "I can feel everything," Dongwu whispered as alien systems came online around him. "The whole galaxy feels like a living thing, breathing and moving." When the session finally ended, both human and Valeth crews stood in amazement. Not only had the plague been completely cleared from the ship's major systems, but the ship itself was now performing better than it had in thousands of years. The combination of human unpredictability and Valeth cosmic awareness creates something entirely new, Tatei observed. "We have created a hybrid consciousness that is more than the sum of its parts." Kethmar looked at his restored ship and his human rescuers with deep gratitude. "For 3,000 years, my people were lost in the darkness between stars. But you found us, and in saving us, you have created something that could change the entire galaxy." Captain Dongwu, still recovering from the intense neural interface session, managed a tired smile. "The question is, what do we do with this new ability?" The answer came from Young Sik, who had been monitoring deep space communications while the others worked. "Captain, I am picking up signals. They are faint but definitely artificial. I think we are hearing other quarantine civilizations calling for help." The bridge fell completely silent as everyone realized what this meant. They had proven that humans and Valeth could work together to overcome the plague. Now they had the opportunity to rescue entire civilizations that had been lost in quarantine for thousands or even millions of years. "How many signals are you detecting?" Dongwu asked. Young Sik checked his readings multiple times before answering. "Dozens, Captain. Maybe hundreds. They are out there in the dark, still calling for help after all this time." Kethmar placed a gentle hand on Dongwu's shoulder. "Will you help us find them all?" Captain Dongwu looked around at his exhausted but determined crew. These humans had risked everything to save a single dying alien species. Then he looked at the awakened Valeth, whose cosmic knowledge could guide them to civilizations lost in the deepest reaches of space. The decision was easy. "Let us bring them all home," he said. And with those words, humanity took its first step toward becoming something it had never been before, the rescuers of lost civilizations, the bridge between quarantined species and the larger galaxy, and the proof that sometimes the most important advancement is not technological power, but the simple willingness to help others in need. The plague had tested them and found them worthy. Now it was time to share that worthiness with every lost civilization waiting in the dark. 6 months had passed since Captain Dongwu first heard that mysterious signal calling from the darkness of space. Now he stood on the bridge of their new ship, the Unity, watching the most incredible sight of his entire career. Spread out before them was a fleet of ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before. Human vessels flew alongside beautifully restored Valeth ships, their crews working together as if they had been partners for centuries instead of months. But that was not all. The fleet also included ships from 3 other species that they had rescued from plague quarantine, each one bringing their own unique knowledge and abilities to their growing alliance. "Captain, we are receiving a message from the Corvani engineering teams," reported Young Sik from his communication station. He now wore a modified neural interface that allowed him to talk instantly with Valeth crew members across their entire fleet. The Corvani were their most recent rescue. They had been trapped by the plague for 800 years on a single dying planet, their entire civilization slowly fading away. But now Corvani engineers worked side by side with human technicians and Valeth navigators, creating technologies that none of them could have imagined alone. "What is their status?" Dongwu asked. "They have successfully removed the plague from their primary manufacturing centers," Young Sik replied with a big smile. "They are ready to start building the new hybrid technologies we designed together." Dr. Haewon, who was now the director of something called Interspecies Medical Research, looked up from her workstation. "Captain, I have the final results from our plague modification project. The news is even better than we hoped." The plague modification project had been humanity's most ambitious idea yet. Instead of just fighting the plague, they had learned to completely reprogram it. The cosmic immune system that had once imprisoned advanced civilizations now worked as a protective network, identifying real threats while allowing peaceful species to grow and explore. The plague network now recognizes 17 different species as non-threatening, Haewon reported. But more importantly, it has started actively protecting these species from genuine cosmic dangers. Engineer Su Bin, who had become the galaxy's first plague interface specialist, nodded from her position at the hybrid control systems. We detected 3 separate dark matter creatures trying to invade the Corvani system last month. The modified plague network destroyed them before they could establish a foothold in our space. Kethmar, now serving as ambassador of Lost Peoples, approached Dongwu's command chair. The Valeth elder looked decades younger than when they had first found him dying in that crystal-covered pod. His silver eyes were bright with purpose and hope. Dongwu, he said, using the informal way of speaking that had become common among their integrated crews, we have detected another cluster of signals. 7 different civilizations in the Andromeda Arm, all quarantined but still sending out calls for help. Captain Dongwu studied the star charts that appeared on the main screen. Each dot of light represented thousands or millions of beings who had been isolated for centuries or millennia, waiting for rescue that they had no reason to believe would ever come. How long will it take us to reach them? He asked. With our new hybrid drive systems, approximately 4 months, replied Taithai, the Valeth scientist who had become their chief navigation specialist. The journey will take us through 3 dark matter storm systems, but our modified plague network should provide complete protection. The hybrid drive systems were another amazing result of interspecies cooperation. Human chaos theory combined with Valeth cosmic awareness and Corvani quantum engineering had produced faster-than-light travel that was both incredibly efficient and completely invisible to hostile forces. There is something else, Captain, Young Sik added. We are starting to receive communications from the galactic core. I think news of what we are doing is spreading to other parts of the galaxy. The Galactic Council had been suspicious of humanity's plague-fighting efforts at first. Many species considered the quarantine civilizations to be lost causes, too dangerous to approach or attempt to rescue. But as news of successful rescue operations spread, attitudes began to change dramatically. What kind of communications? Dongwu asked. Requests for help, mostly. The Zentari Confederacy reports plague outbreaks in their outer colonies. The Silicon Collective thinks they have detected quarantine machine intelligences in the Void Nebula. And Captain. Young Sik paused, double-checking his readings. We are receiving formal diplomatic requests from over 40 different species governments. Dr. Haewon looked up with interest. Diplomatic requests? They want to establish formal relations with our human Valeth alliance, Young Sik explained. Some are offering us territorial rights to entire star systems. Others are proposing research partnerships and technology exchanges. The Aquatic Federation is offering exclusive navigation rights through their space lanes. Captain Dongwu felt a mixture of pride and overwhelming responsibility. When he had first decided to investigate that ancient distress signal, he had been thinking only of helping one lost species. Now humanity found itself at the center of a growing alliance of rescued civilizations, each one contributing their unique knowledge and abilities to their collective mission. Captain, Su Bin called from her monitoring station, I am detecting something very unusual in our long-range sensors. There is a massive artificial structure near the galactic core, and it is sending out some kind of beacon signal. The main screen shifted to show a faint but clearly artificial signal pattern. It was more complex than anything they had encountered before, suggesting a level of technological advancement that made even the most sophisticated quarantine civilizations look primitive by comparison. Kethmar studied the signal with growing excitement and nervousness. This pattern? I have seen something similar in our oldest historical records. From before the plague existed, when my people first began exploring the deep regions of the galaxy. What do you think it is? Dongwu asked. I believe, Kethmar said slowly, that we have found the civilization that originally created the plague system. The bridge fell completely silent as everyone absorbed what this meant. Somewhere near the galactic core was the species responsible for the cosmic immune system that had quarantined so many civilizations over millions of years. They were still alive, still active, and now they were sending signals toward the growing human-led alliance. It could be a trap, Young Sik pointed out. They might not be happy about what we have done to their plague network. Or, Dr. Haewon suggested, they might be impressed that someone finally figured out how to work with their system instead of against it. Captain Dongwu looked around at his integrated crew. Humans and Valeth worked seamlessly together, their combined abilities far exceeding what either species could achieve alone. Behind them stretched a growing fleet of rescued civilizations, each one adding their own knowledge and perspective to humanity's mission of cosmic rescue. In the distance, he could see human children playing with young Valeth and Corvani in the ship's recreation areas. The children were not afraid of the aliens, and the aliens were gentle and careful around the small humans. It was a sight that still amazed him every time he saw it. Set course for the galactic core, he decided. It is time we met the species that has been testing us all along. As the Unity and its companion ships began their journey toward the mysterious beacon, Dongwu reflected on how much had changed since that first distress signal. Humanity had started as a small, relatively new species on the galactic frontier. Now they were the bridge between quarantine civilizations and cosmic forces beyond imagination. But more than that, they had proven something important about the nature of intelligence and advancement. True progress was not about building the most powerful weapons or conquering the most territory. It was about reaching out to help others, about finding cooperation where others saw only competition. In a medical bay deep in the ship, Dr. Haywon was treating a young Corvani engineer who had suffered neural feedback during a plague interface session. As she worked, human children from the ship's families played with young Valeth and Corvani nearby, their laughter echoing through the corridors. "You know," the Corvani engineer said as Haywon finished her treatment, "before you found us, I thought we were going to die alone and forgotten." "Nobody has to die alone," Haywon replied, watching the mixed group of children playing together. "That is what we have learned. In the darkness, everyone can find their way home if someone is willing to look for them." Captain Dongwu stood on the bridge, watching the stars stream by as they traveled toward their destiny at the galactic core. Behind them, signals from dozens of quarantine civilizations painted hope across the cosmic darkness. Ahead of them, the mysterious beacon promised answers to questions they were only beginning to understand. They had all been lost in the dark for so long. Every species that had ever been quarantined by the cosmic immune system had faced isolation and despair. But humanity had found them, and in saving them, had discovered that the greatest strength in the universe was not advanced technology or military might. It was the simple willingness to help someone who needed help, no matter how strange or different they might be. And that willingness had transformed a small human exploration ship into the nucleus of something that could reshape the entire galaxy.